It's been 20 years. Your thoughts?
Well, I just went back to the Trout Creek Mountain 20th anniversary 2 weeks after a devastating fire. And you guys, that mountain is just blackened. It was about 7 or 8 days of continual wind blowing, dry, and the Eterion is one of the families. They're Basque, and it took me a long time to Eterion And our daughter went to Crane High School because we didn't have a high school where we live, and their kids from down in the Trout Creeks went there, and so we'd go to all the ball games and everything. Probably took about 10 ball games for me to get their name down, but anyway, they lost a third of their cattle in this devastating fire. And they were going to have the meeting hoping that more cattle could go on the top of the mountain. Because we had that experience, we kind of got to know how people work together, and it was so fun with Doc playing the role of the mean old rancher, because many of those folks, they said, you act just exactly like the ranch I had not long ago, and this, you know. And one thing we learned too, that many of the ranchers, and I love them all, bless their pea-picking souls, some of them, but I love them all. If you're scared, a man is not going to say, I'm frightened or scared. That would not do. But that's how you show anger for that. And it's a substitute for being scared to death that we're going to lose our ranches, we're going to lose our way of life, etc. So much of that is still going on now. And it's very, very sad. Well, when Wayne Elmore asked us to go down to the Trout Creeks because he was going to give this talk to them, because that poor mountain had been overgrazed for 120 to 30 years with sheep or with cattle. And the riparians had been all chewed out. And the ranchers that lived there, Richard Eterion DeBatey and Jeanette, he said, well, when I went fishing with Dad, the fisheries were just like this. You know, there wasn't any willows and stuff, very, very few. So it had been just plain neglected the way it should have been used for years, and the ranchers were not really aware of it, but we all became aware of it when it was cattle-free by 93, and all that helped the ranch community learn a lot that we hadn't known or hadn't thought about. So that part was good. So here's Wayne Elmore, and he asked us to come down, and Doc was going to talk after Wayne talked. Wayne started showing us double slides. He had slides of, you've probably, many of you seen them, you know, something, and then when it wasn't as good as it was.
Before and after.
Yeah, before and after. Thank you very much. And Brett Lay and Richard and Steve Mayer and, there were a couple more cowboys came in, and we were at the little McDermott school, and there wasn't much space. It's a little bit smaller than this room. And they stood over by the windows, and they were all decked out in their buckaroo outfits, and that's what they worked in. Every time Wayne would show something, they would, when did you take that picture? I bet it didn't look like, rude. And Brett had gone by the bar, and he had a little bit of drink in him, which he shouldn't have had, but he did. So he was feeling pretty good about just talking right up at what he thought. And that whole afternoon was not pleasant because he was just being negative. You saw how unnegative he was there when he said, it takes about 5 times, but you just got to go to those meetings and work together. It was so neat. But let me tell you then, when this whole thing started, the next day then, we went up on the mountain. And I got in the different rigs every time we stopped. And I got in the BLM rig, and then I got in the rancher rig, and then I got in the ologist rig. I call them ologists, you know, there's the water ones. And all of them were kind of talking a little bit different, and how this was the 3rd year they'd gone on this tour, and nothing's happened except. So we got at the top of the hill, all got out, and Doc and I had learned about this circle, that if you talk in a circle, that's good. And I just started saying, well, Steve Mayer said, you know, been the 3rd year, nothing's happened, you guys go away, things stay the same, that's just the way it's been. And so I piped up and said, yes, and I've been in every band, and here's what this one said, here's what these said, this is what they said, this is what, which was really not right for me to do, but here I am, a lady, and that's one thing, the ranchers are pretty nice to ladies, because they've been taught that you're nice to women.
You have to tip your hat, don't you?
Tip your hat. And so the point is, it got out, and people started talking up there and said, we've got to do something. And because Doc and I had also started Country Natural Beef, which is a beef marketing co-op, we learned some more about the circle. And how many of you in here have heard of Bob Chadwick? Okay. Bob Chadwick helped teach us. He used to work for the Forest Service down in the Klamath. And then the Indians, you know, have their circle and their talking stick. And he's kind of taught us a lot of that type of thinking. And it really works with rancher groups. And what we knew because of Country Natural Beef is we need to invite the women to come along with the men to the next meeting. We bet they wouldn't come drinking, and we bet they would come with their manners, and they did. And here was a neat thing. We had this meeting, again in the school. Am I talking? I'm getting a dirty look. Am I okay? Maybe I didn't take that as a dirty look.
No.
Sometimes I'm not politically correct.
Just about your name, don't worry about it.
Anyway, so we were, let's see, where was I? I was
Going to the school.
Women. Yeah.
So
Women are key.
the second meeting, well, and here's the thing. Why I felt power is because when we went to those 7 states, I really learned that I'm a citizen of the United States. And I help pay all your salary. Because we finally started selling Country Natural Beef, and I finally started paying income tax. So I know that we bring all your salary.
Round of applause for them.
As you probably know, many ranchers don't pay very much income tax because we pay mostly, you know, we go to the bank and borrow money. Okay, so I'm getting off here. So we went to this meeting and we had learned about sitting in the circle. So in comes the people, and so the BLM, what we did as ranchers was, I started the meeting. I called and said, could we have a meeting? And the ranchers down there figured out where they could have it. And then I invited all the BLM to come, all the ologists to come. We knew we needed the Oregon Game and Fish to come. Who else did we have come? The people we felt we needed to have come that had something to do with that Trout Creek Mountain. We needed the Vail District and the Burns District. And it was kind of interesting because after we had about 4 meetings, we had to invite someone else that we didn't know because this Lahontan, he has the goal to swim in the Burns District, go over into the Vail District, and he went down into Nevada.
The nerve.
We did not have the federal people. What are they called now?
Fish and Wildflower Service.
We didn't have them at the table, and so we had to call and get them to come to the table. The point was is we had everybody there, and we had our environmental community, Isaac Wanton League, Kathy Myron, she was a lady with kind of the big hat and stuff. She was with Oregon. I've heard Oregon Trout isn't going anymore.
They changed their name and moved to another organization, but they're still around.
Oh, okay. Well, they were great help in teaching us what all that fish needs and everything. And then there was the who was another one? Mary Hansen with the Oregon Environmental Council, and she was a great facilitator and helped all of us do that. So the point is when we get together, there are those people. Well, I called the BLM, and they said they'd be glad to help put out the message that people were coming. I said, now we want the wives to come. Because we learned that in Country Natural Beef, we want the wives to come. Oh, we can't do that. I said, why? Well, they said, there might be a significant other or something. And I said, this is 20 years ago. I
It's
said,
not Boulder, you know.
just about what I said. I said, listen, folks out here, they're husband-wife teams. That's what they are. Let's get their names. The neat thing is the women had never been invited to come with the men, even though some of them are totally ranchers and do it all the time, but the men go into those meetings. The women hadn't, but they were specifically invited. In they came, and the men, gee, they were nice. They were very, they really were. The women were really pleased to be there. I mean, they had a name, and they were part of the ranch, too. So we sat in this circle, and we kind of started meetings like, how do you feel about being here today? And then what would you like to help have happen? Now, how do you feel about being here today? People can say. And in Country Natural Beef, it's kind of interesting because we really got to know our ranch families. For the first 11 years, there were 14 ranch families that gathered 4 times a year, so we really became close friends. And somebody might look a little off or something, and when it was their time, I remember one said, my mom just went in for cancer, and I'm feeling very, very sad today. And the point is that you got to get your voice in the room, and you got to say how you were feeling. Most of the time it was something nice, but something like that, you can look in a crowd and look at your friends and know something's a little off. But this gave them the opportunity to talk, and so we knew that was very powerful. And then what would you like to help have happen today? It's kind of like, oh, I've come to a meeting, and they want to know what they're asking me. Why would somebody ask me anything? Who am I? But so those are the questions we ask. And the first time around, I know Richard Eterio the baby. He was sitting about 4 chairs from his wife, and it was his time. He said, "I don't have anything to say," and that was fine. But he just, I don't have anything to say, and he was probably embarrassed too. And 4 chairs by Jeanette, who is a school teacher. She answered the question we were speaking about, and she answered it beautifully. It was about, well, here's what we do with our riparian and what we're thinking about we're going to do on our ranch, and it was outstanding. And I wasn't supposed to say anything because they're supposed to talk, but I said, Jeanette, that was great. How did you know all that? And she said, that's the way we talk at home all the time around the breakfast table. And Richard sat up in his seat, and the next time it was his turn, he started sharing things he needed to share with all of us because they were really wise. So I guess my point is that especially with the ranch community, and if anybody has the opportunity, and there may be some significant others now, I don't know, but if they are, they're living under the same roof, and you could invite the husband-wife teams, the daughters and sons that are home, the different generations and stuff, and you can realize kind of like what this test thing was of where are you and how are you different. We did one of these in Country Natural Beef after 10 years of working with these folks, and boy, was that helpful. Oh my gosh. There was people in Country Natural Beef, especially one man, I adored him, and sometimes I just couldn't stand him. And now I adore him all the time because I understood where he was coming from when we learned his personality. And he'll always be like that, and it's fine, and he doesn't mean what he does that hurts me because I'm this odd personality, and but he never meant that way. And it helps so much. So these kind of things are just terrific.
Yeah, I was curious. In the video, it mentions that there used to be 1,900 head of cattle.
Okay.
And now, I guess before the fire and things, there were 700.
Well, they cut down. The White Horse Ranch moved, and when they said 1,900, I'm not too sure about that, but they moved 3,000 of their head of cattle for 3 years off the mountain. They leased property over in Central Oregon, fairly close to where we live, and that helped this mountain heal. And some of the other ranchers did the same thing. And then, of course not. That's right, we cooked lunch, that's exactly what
So,
we
but
did.
you are still.
But in
open-
Art Country Beef, we switched that around where it's husband-wife team, and everybody in this circle gets to speak. So their voices come out pretty quick. It isn't just the men, it's the men and the women. And on the way home, it's great because, you know, most of us have 150 or 200 miles from meetings. And Doc would tell me what he learned, and I would tell him what I learned. And both sides of the brains came out, and it's really powerful. And the women loved it because usually you go to something like that, and if I used to want to go to the Cattleman's because I'm a horrible cook and I don't do good in the kitchen, and they kick me out. They'd say, "Hey, you can't go down there." It's really sad, but so this breaks the women. And it's a nice thing because it's kind of done. Nobody really knows it. It's just, well, you're supposed to have your wife here or have your older daughter, if you have a daughter that's going to take over, or, you know, whatever. But that is, we have found that that's the key to success in the ranch community or the farm community.
Wow.
It's that simple.
Just